and audience from all across the world. I welcome you all in LPC 82nd episode. LPC, as you know, is the world's largest pharma learning and knowledge sharing forum. We come online every Sunday at 11 a.m. and we talk something on pharma at LPC. I would like to take you through a small presentation where we give detail on LPC, which will be a bit crisp and easier to correlate. So LPC, as I have been telling, is the world's largest online pharma discussion forum. LPC is becoming a bigger forum day by day, month by month, week by week, because of the two reasons. Number one, the speakers. We have the subject matter expert in every week, so they talk something which the viewers and which the audience would like to learn from them. And then number two, the topics are very, very apt. It is very diversified topic which touches all phases of pharma industry. Every week, early this year, we have started differentiating the week-wise session. The first week is a leadership session where the leaders of pharma industry come and they share their learning, mostly sales, marketing, business development. Those leaders come and they talk something new, some of their learning, some of their experience on LPC platform. The second week is the global leadership, where leaders from all across the world, they come at LPC forum and they share their learning and their experiences. From early this year, what we have started, we have started country-wise focus on LPC global leadership. So by now we have already covered 10 countries like Peru, like Brazil, Nigeria, Kenya. Then in Southeast Asia, we have covered Malaysia, we have covered Philippines, Middle East Asia, we have covered GCC. So today we have a session which is targeting a country, a ROW market from Europe, that is Ukraine. So we will go in detail about the Ukraine a little bit later. Then the third week is the young leadership, whether the young leaders from pharma, the product managers, the marketing managers, the sales managers, the business development managers, they come and they talk about their learning and their sharing. Fourth week is the academic, which is targeted to B pharmacy colleges, B pharmacy pharmacy students, as well as the MBA pharma students, where their teachers come and they share their learning and experiences. And the fourth week is the women leadership, where the women leaders from pharma come and they speak about their challenges, their learning, the way forward. So that is how we have targeted 5 weeks for 5 different categories, so that we cover all sphere of pharma industry. So how the LPC started, it is a very interesting story where 4 friends, ex-supplied, they came on a Sunday and they thought during lockdown that they should talk something constructive on Sundays. So Mr. Raman Marke, Mr. Yashwant Misra, Mr. ICS Verma, and Mr. Vinod Vaswani, they started LPC way back in May 2020. And with the time, the forum became bigger. We got more speakers, we got varied topics, we got a good number of audience because of the sheer content and the quality of the speakers. Then with the time, early this year, we have given a shape to LPC where we made executive members. So today we have around 24 executive members who are dedicated to the particular forum. Few executive members, they are dedicated to the leadership forum, then global forum, then women leadership, academic leadership, as well as the young leadership. So these executive members, they tirelessly work to get good speakers, nice topic, so that it can add value to pharma professionals' life. That is how LPC has become back, and LPC is a non-for-profit pro bono forum. So we all work only to share knowledge, only to spread knowledge across pharma industry. And today, LPC reaches around 20,000 people in Facebook page every month. And for every session, by the end of 1 month, we have around 5,000 Facebook engagement. Means this session, if I go to Facebook on 14th December 2021, there will be around 5,000 people who would have engaged with this page. Engaged means they have seen or they have commented. And we have around 2,000 people in 2,000 viewers in YouTube. So LPC has a big viewership, big followership, only because the credit goes to our respected speakers, the quality of the speaker who come and who give the different learning which a general professional will not have when he is working in a particular company. So with this, we have also started few more things. We are trying to monetize LPC by this second initiative where we have the mentor-mentee program. We have a system where any pharma professional can become a LPC member. We have a very small fees for this. And then we have a group of mentor out of these speakers who give the mentoring to these members every third Sunday of the month. So these will be the topic which are very, very pertinent to the skill set required for pharma industry. And it is very interactive session which goes from 1.5 to 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. So I would invite you all to get into LPC membership and get the advantage, get the assistance from these mentors to improve your skill set. So LPC mentorship program we have already put, and of late we are also trying to collaborate with the companies, because at the end of the day, when you stream the program, it has some cost. So to get that cost, we are trying to get collaboration with the organizations. Stream Communication is our partner who are assisting us in live streaming of this program. Thank you to Stream Communication for your kind support to LPC. So with this, I welcome once again the team, and I hand over session to, we have 3 panelists today, Mr. Manu, Mr. Rahil, and Mr. Saurabh. So I will hand over session to Mr. Manu so that he can introduce himself and then talk about the topic today. Welcome, Mr. Manu. Sir, you are muted.
Yeah. Very good morning to everyone. Let me thank Mr. Hitesh for setting the tone of 82nd LPC Global Leadership Program. So today we have a program which is primarily on the RWO market, which is the Ukraine. So before we proceed further, let me introduce myself. Myself, Manu Mahendru. I have around 25-year plus experience in pharmaceutical industries. I have worked in domestic with the Pfizer. Then I have worked in international with company like USV with Cadila Pharmaceuticals, and presently I am working as a head business unit in Pharma Specialty Limited, Kenya. So this is my brief introduction. So I have worked across geography, based as an expat, and also worked from India itself. So this is my brief introduction. So now I will request Mr. Saurabh to introduce himself before we introduce our today's speaker guests. Mr. Saurabh.
Thank you, Mr. Mahendru. Very good morning to the pharmaceutical stalwarts with whom I'm sharing the screen today. And a warm welcome to all the audience who are viewing us from different time zones across the globe. It is my pleasure to host the esteemed guest today, who will be talking about the Ukrainian market, which has been a far-hanging fruit for most of the pharmaceuticals in the ROW region and very difficult to tap. If we see the geographical position of Ukraine, we'll find that the Ukraine is at the juncture where the emerging markets of ROW ends and the regulated markets of European Union starts. Interestingly, Ukraine follows the same pattern when it comes to the pharmaceutical practices as well. Ukraine is following the footsteps of the regulated market, and this paradigm shift is giving anxiety to a lot of our colleagues and pharmaceutical professionals in ROW market. I look forward for our esteemed guest to share their wisdom, and I am very confident by the end of this session, a lot of our anxieties will be resolved. So I would now like to hand over the screen to Mr. Rahil Shah for introducing himself and express his understanding of the topic today. Mr. Rahil, over to you.
Thank you, Saurabh, and warm welcome to all of you, all LPC members. I am Rahil Shah and devoted more than my 20 years into the pharma industry. Like many, I started my career as a medical representative in Dr. Reddy's laboratory, moved horizontally into the product management and marketing with Torrent, and then from 2005 I shifted to the international business and spent most of my time with Alchem Laboratories and Hydro Drugs. For last 1 year, I'm working with Pinnacle Life Sciences, which is a part of RT Drugs and Industries. Before also commenting on the topic, I would also like to say something about LPC. Thanks a lot, and all LPC executive members are doing a great job to the pharma community all across. I mean, with your efforts, LPC has already touched, and we will cross LPC-82, and these are not very far where we will reach to LPC-100, which we are all looking forward for. And warm welcome to all the guests. Already you have spoken about the Ukraine, so I'm not taking much time. And over to Hitesh again.
Thank you, Mr. Saurabh. Thank you very much. And I really thank Mr. Manu, Mr. Saurabh, and Mr. Rahil for their time this morning for LPC. Now I welcome Mr. Vlad. He can give a small overview of his topic and a small introduction for today. And then I would invite Madam Anastasia. Welcome, Mr. Vlad.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate for a nice introduction to LPC-82 Global Leadership Live streaming. My name is Vlad Reznikov. Actually, full name is Vladislav.
Your voice is a bit low, sir. Mr. Vlad, your voice is a bit low. I don't know why. Am I right, Mr. Manu? The voice is a bit low.
A bit low? Well.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me switch to another headphones. Give me a second.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you can leave headphone and you can use the laptop. This thing.
Hold on.
Now there is no voice. No voice, sir. There is no voice.
I think better you can go with your headphones.
Yeah, the previous was better. At least there was some voice. No voice. Maybe you can go with your previous system also. At least there was some voice there.
Hello?
I think there is now better.
Now it's better. We can
It's
hear you
better.
clearly.
Okay. Apple. Sorry for that. Everything was just great before we start.
Great.
So let me repeat once again. Thank you so much for your kind invitation to LPC-82 Global Leadership live streaming. My name is Vlad Reznikov, VLAD, and I'm the founder and owner and central executive officer of the company located in the United States for business consulting. It's a pattern of USA. At the same time, I'm the owner and founder of Pattern Ltd in Ukraine for regulatory affairs, and Anastasia will continue. Anastasia, go on, please.
Good morning, dear colleagues. Nice to meet you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anastasia Tarasova. I'm the head of regulatory affairs Pattern Ltd Ukraine. Quality management, the regulatory affairs since 2019 for major local manufacturers of generic drugs for the market authorization in Ukraine and other countries.
Thank you, Madam Anastasia, and thanks, Mr. Vlad, for your valuable time. And Mr. Vlad, what would be a time at your place now? You are joining us from US. It will be midnight.
Oh yeah. Yeah, actually, I'm joining you from Miami, Florida, the United States of America, and right now it's almost 1 a.m., which means
so
1
nice of
at
you.
night.
So nice of you.
Yeah.
You are online at 1 a.m. from US. So viewers, today we have a panel. We have people here from 4 continents. Mr. Vlad is from America. I'm here from Africa. Madam Anastasia is from Mr. Manu is also from Africa. Madam Anastasia is from Europe, and Mr. Saurabh and Mr. Rahil is from India. So a truly global session is today, where we have people from 4 continents. Over to Mr. Manu to move forward with Mr. Vlad.
Once again, I welcome the guest speakers on this forum. So Dr. Vlad is CEO, as he has told, for Pattern of USA Inc. He has 25-year plus experience of business development, consulting in Ukraine, in CIS, and now presently is based out of United States of America. He has worked for companies like Sharing, Bayer, Cyrano, Merck, Swiss, and many other companies. And he is, we can say, is veteran who has moved from ex-USSR to current CIS. So he has seen both the phases and transition of the pharmaceutical market, which very few people have witnessed. And now the Ukraine market, these countries got independent in 1991 onwards. So now the complete transition has taken place, and CIS itself has evolved into very well established kind of now a regulated market. They have moved very fast towards Europe, and Ukraine, I will say, is a kind of a gateway, or is a kind of a market which is primarily now is a regulated market. Though for our terminology, we may say it as a rest of world, but I think Mr. Vlad will be there with his expertise and experience. He will be able to put a light on the Ukraine market from his experience and with his expertise. So now let's welcome Mr. Vlad, and we request him to put a light on the same. Thank you, sir. So we welcome you, Mr. Vlad, to start your session. So we are eager to hear from you.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate that. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Ukraine is a country with 1,500 years of history, starting from establishment, but it's tricky. Actually, it's just 30 years of real independence in Ukraine. And, like a new market, emerging market is still floating, I would say floating. But actually, it's a nice country, and you can find whatever you want to find in Ukraine, like in India. You can find everything there. Like a nice sea, nice people, mountains, the snow mountains for open ski, and forest, and actually perfect agriculture. Ukraine is well known for its agriculture. And right now I will share with you my screen to show some facts about Ukraine. for now, it's like 41 million population in Ukraine, pretty much. Actually, it's it's like France. We always compare Ukraine with France because France is in Europe, Ukraine is in Eastern Europe. Ukraine is successor of Soviet Union with communists and all this stuff. Starting independence, like you told, in 1991, but it's still developing. Let's say it has so many political problems. It has so many corruption inside the country, like every developed country. But the Ukrainian currency is pretty flat. Yes, we have had some jumps, from 1 to whatever figures. For now, it's more than less stable, and it's good for us. Ukraine is a presidential country. I mean, the first person in the country is the president of Ukraine, but we have parliament system. It's more or less democratic, and we have cabinet of minister, like in most of countries around the world, with GDP around 155 billion per year, which is not much, because GDP per capita is just 3,700. However, Ukraine is a regulated market, but again, it's tricky because you can still buy prescriptive drugs. Of course, you need a prescription. If you go to a pharmacy and show your prescription, you'll get your drug. However, you can get almost the same drug. Of course, no narcotics, no something hard, but antibiotics and most of the drugs you can buy even without prescription. And actually, that's a nice gap, for commercial companies to sell the drugs. But the price of the drugs is relatively low. I will tell about this a little bit later. Right now, Ukraine is very well known around the world for Chernobyl. You remember this tragedy? And for the last 7 years, Russia occupied part of Ukraine, and that's a big problem. Ukraine and Russia is not at the state of war, but situation is not perfect at all, because Crimea is taken by Russia, eastern part of Ukraine is taken by Russia, and most of eastern regions of Ukraine is still suffering, from this tragedy. From the other hand, Ukraine, the rest of Ukraine, it's really good. It's relatively good. It's like people, they know about this tension, but they don't feel it. They just know that Ukraine lost like 15,000 people in this incident on the eastern part of Ukraine. So actually, it's a really sensitive question right now. And regarding pharmaceutical market size, Ukraine has almost 3.5 billion in 2020, with constant increasing of market share for like 11-15% every year. And as you can see from the graph on the left side, it's constant. And it's like, that was almost nothing. The market size was 0 in 1991, and now it's 3.5 billion, which allows a lot of companies come to this market and sell their products, and competition is tough. The hospital sales, let's say hospital sales is for hospital, municipal, and state purchases of drugs. Relatively low. It's less than a quarter of market share in 2020, raising from just 11% in 2019. So the state takes care about this drug, about availability of drugs for people, but most of sales are still is going through pharmacies, and people buy drugs by themselves. There is no well-established reimbursement. Just part of drugs like high blood pressure and control, diabetes, all this stuff. Then they're partly reimbursed by or fully reimbursed by the state. The rest of drugs people have to buy by themselves. Moreover, medical insurance is still not well established, so people have to pay, for medical treatment. It's still low cost because low salaries, but they have to pay. On the right part of my slide, you can see that average cost of drugs is increasing when you go to international suppliers, which means Ukraine has their own production of drugs. Most of them are generics. Most of them are simple, relatively simple. But international companies selling the same products in Ukraine get more money than local manufacturers. So again, there's another gap, and you can utilize it by selling international drugs in Ukraine. All right. And the last slide I want to share with you is top companies in hospital or state sales and pharmacy or retail sales. As you can see, there are names, or you can recognize these names in English, and you can't read the Russian names, which means that English or international companies, you can recognize here, are merged with local manufacturers. And actually, it's like 50-50. Part of the market belongs to international companies, part of the market belongs to local companies. But both of them feel really great on this market. It's like equilibrium, because local companies sell, simplified drugs, and international companies sell original drugs or generics made, in really nice manufacturing sense and really nice quality. So basically, that's all about the market. And then you asked me to share some ideas regarding business models possible for working professionals or pharmaceutical company, for ventures, for VC, for opportunities, and so on. As you can see from this slide, there are so many options, starting from international companies. If you want to enter this market, you have to build company brand. You have to have branded drugs. I highly recommend get intellectual property rights on these brands, like trademark registration, maybe patent protection, whatever you can do. Then you have to keep GMP active on your manufacturing side, regional manufacturing side, and or start white label production under your own brand. Then get market authorizations. That's what exactly what we can do for you. Find distributors, and actually, they're slightly divided. Some distributors work with hospital or state sales. Some just work with retail markets through pharmacies. And that's how you, excuse me, and that's how you do your business. If you start promotion like ATL, above the line or below the line promotion. Sorry for that. If you're just an individual, if you don't have a company behind you, you can start with unique product. If you have, some ideas, if you have R&D, and then again, the same story. IP rights, market authorization holder, and go through a pharmacy sale. with assistance of local distributor. For venture capitalists, there are so many options. Ukraine is still undeveloped country, not really developed. It's well regulated, but not really developed. So you can go like a local farmer producer or purchase, some plant or manufacturing site. You can go with local brand or purchase it. You can start to be a local distributor or buy a network, or start your pharmacy business. And actually opportunities, there are so many opportunities, but whatever you want to do, you better do it before 2024. Because as official says, in 2024, or drug promotions will be prohibited. And that's pretty important because they goes for prescription drugs, for OTC, and even for dietary supplements. So it seems like it's going to be an advertising ban in 2024. So it's a perfect year to start your business in Ukraine right now. Thank you so much. I didn't take too much time and ready to answer your questions, if so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vlad. It was a very enlightening session, and we have viewers from. Thank you, Mr. Vlad. It was very enlightening session, and we have viewers from all across world who are appreciating and who are praising the content. We have Mr. Vidyasagar Sharma from Tanzania, Mr. Dubey, Mr. Joydeep Pandey, Mr. Sailesh Kapadia from Canada, Mr. Arungaman Arsan from India. Mr. Vishal Chandra is saying hi to you. He was in Kyiv and currently he's in Germany. So he says that he had a professional attachment with pattern. Madam Preeti Jitani from Cambodia, she's appreciating your these are the few people who have put a lot of positive comments for your presentation in YouTube as well as in Facebook. So over to Mr. Saurabh to speak with Madam Anastasia.
Thank you, Tesha. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure today to introduce to you Ms. Anastasia Tarasova, who is the regulatory consultant and a specialist in market entry and quality management when it comes to Ukraine. Ms. Anastasia is a chemical engineer from academic background, and she has almost 10 years of experience in quality management and regulatory affairs. She is at present a head of regulatory affairs with Pattern Limited Ukraine. And apart from the Ukraine and the CIS market, she also has rich experience of market entry and regulatory affairs in countries such as Afghanistan, Yemen, and other countries of Middle East and North Africa. I would now request Ms. Anastasia to enlighten us from her presentation about the regulatory affairs aspect of the Ukrainian market. Ms. Anastasia, over to you.
Good morning, dear colleagues. One time.
Meanwhile, I would request all our live audience to keep forwarding your queries to us through Facebook and YouTube. Mr. Hitesh, as a moderator, is very generous in taking up these queries, and I hope our expertise today with Mr. Vlad and Mr. Anastasia will be able to resolve most of them.
The theme of my presentation is registration of pharmaceutical drugs, pharmacovigilance, and GMP in Ukraine. Since 2005, the legalization of Ukraine concentrated registration and circulation of medicinal product has been in the process of gradual harmonization with the EU legalization. Current requirement of establishing and maintaining registration, safety, and quality at close to the European requirements. Medical products are allowed for import, sales, and use in Ukraine only after the state registration. Also, the state confirmation that they meet the quality and safety requirements. The Ministry of Health of Ukraine performs registration of medicine product based on the expected ascension of the application and registration materials provided by the state enterprise, state expert centers, and the supervising of the MO. MOZA has the only authorization command in Ukraine. There are several options for a new registration of drugs, like standard registration. The assessment period varies from 45 to 210 working days, depending on the type of the application. Fast track registration through the recognized process, the assessment with the term of 10 business days. Fast track registration, authenticity verification. Registration under the road is possible only for the medicine products by the regulatory authority of the USA, Switzerland, Japan, Australia, and other countries approved by EMA. Emergency use authorization of vaccine for COVID-19 prevention approved by the result of Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine number 95. Requirements of local office and mobility. Marketing authorization holder is also responsible for the pharmacovigilance in Ukraine and conforming of the manufacturing condition with the GMP requirements as follows. Establish, and maintain the registration of the medical product. Establish and maintain the pharmacovigilance system in Ukraine. Confirm and maintain conformity with the GMP requirements. In other words, keep validity of GMP certification approved by Ukraine RA. The main purpose the application, the registration form, and justifies its type during the registration validity. You can see on this slide. Requirements of local offices, not specific requirements for authorized representative for registration process until pharmacovigilance phase is if original POA is issued in accordance with the local requirements at the country of origin. Plant inspection, conformity of the manufacturing condition with the GMP requirements. Plant inspection, the State Service of Ukraine of Medicine and Drugs Control of Ukraine issues the decision of GMP compliance based on 8 recognition of the GMP certificate issued by the competent authority of the reference country. A positive result of the inspection. Until the middle of 2020, Ukraine has recognized GMP certification issued by the PKS members. Since July 20, 21, the list of the recognition state has been reduced to UA member states, the United Kingdom, and countries that have manual recognized agreement with you or Ukraine. You can see this country. Recognition of the GMP certificate is not unconditional. Is required to fill the set of documents, submit to the competent authority, follow the assessment processes, and review of decisions, if any. If the manufacturer does not possess a GMP certificate issued by the competent authority of any of the 35 countries, it will be necessary to apply of Ukrainian GMP inspection. Type of dossier. The registration dossier requirement depend on the application type chosen, most often submitted in the CTD or EACTD format, consisting of 5 modules. The modules 2 to 5 are made in accordance with the ACH-CTD requirements and partly translated to Ukrainian. Sorry. Specific national documents, it's like UCM, quality control methods of the medical product, full instruction for use, label and package label information, the primary and secondary packaging. There are many specific requirements of the presentation of the dossier. The following criteria are the most important you can see on this slide. Marketing authorization is issued for 5 years after first approval, unless another period is defined by the registration rules. After renewal, authorization is issued without expect to the cases if an additional 5 years period is approved by Ministry of Health for pharmacovigilance reasons. Pharmacovigilance. Sorry. The medicinal product must comply with the pharmacovigilance requirements from the moment of its state registration. The man is responsible for the establishment and maintaining the pharmacovigilance system in Ukraine. The man is designated as a qualified person responsible for pharmacovigilance QPPV. Non-registration man must designate the local contact person for pharmacovigilance. Sorry. QPPV or OCP in Ukraine. The establishment and maintenance of pharmacovigilance system is the territory of Ukraine, can be delegated to the first party.
Ms. Anastasia, if you'd like to take a break for a minute, we can go ahead with that. Viewers, Ms. Anastasia is having a sore throat and infection, so we appreciate her participation today.
Actually, I'm sorry for that. If we can excuse Anastasia,
yes,
maybe she can leave, because health is in first place. But I can continue with this presentation. It's not a big problem because we're almost finished. We're going to
that would be great. That would be great.
Appreciate that. Dr. Vlad, please continue. And Ms. Anastasia, thank you so much. Despite of your sore throat and infection, you have participated today. We really thank you for that, for your presence.
Excuse me. I feel very bad, and Vlad Reznik, I will answer and continue this presentation, and then answer for all questions.
Okay.
Thank you for all. And
yes, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. No issues, no issues. Dr. Vlad, you can continue with the presentation, please.
Okay, Anastasia, thank you so much. You can leave the streaming. I appreciate that. And switch your screen sharing to off. Anastasia, just switch off or leave. Yeah, thank you, thank you. It's on the top of your screen. So, yep. Okay, perfect.
Dr. Vlad, let me summarize the discussion so far with Ms. Anastasia. We understood that the fast track registration is a very easy way to get into Ukrainian market if the products are already recognized and registered with the stringent regulatory authorities like Japan, USA, Canada, and Australia. It takes only 10 days to get the product registered in Ukraine, and that's a very fascinating aspect. So we can see that Ukraine is following and recognizing the regulations of these stringent markets. I have a query. What about the registration timeline of the products who are originating from the ROW market? Let's say if a manufacturer from India wishes to get the product registered in Ukraine, how much time would it take?
That was a tricky question. Actually, this fast-track registration is not the case in Ukraine. It's declared. Like many, good things in Ukraine, they're declared, but you never get an effect. So don't worry.
That's the tricky part.
By the way, in Georgia, in other countries, the fast-track registration is possible. In Ukraine, it's never happened. No one gets this fast-track registration. Where even they're from Japan, European Union, United States, Canada, doesn't matter. It never happened. Basically, I will let me briefly go through this presentation again, like 5 seconds, every next slide, because we have to excuse Anastasia. She's got COVID. It's a COVID, and there's not much she can do. She almost dying on the presentation. So sorry for that, but that was her best effort. So I will, let's say, go through, because we saved some time, and briefly explain you everything. All right?
Yeah. Please.
That would be great. That would be great.
All right. So briefly speaking, from 4 types of registration, only first one and last one is possible. The first one is the standard registration, and it takes, I'm answering your question, 210 working days of regulatory authority work, which means if you made a great job and prepare registration dossier and translate everything, and check all mistakes, all possible mistakes, and reduce all risks, it's going to be like 1.5 years for manufacturing site from India if everything is great, if they have GMP, if they have everything in a good condition. Usually it takes up to 2 years. If it takes more than 2 years, then they're cautious, they have a problem. And in this case, they even don't get a market authorization. Then this fast-track registration, as I told you before, is not the case in Ukraine. It's just declared. The third one is the rare exception for products, purchased from World Health Organization or NGOs or whatever. The last one for COVID is possible, like in every country right now, because we have high demand and we have to follow, this new challenging time. All right, the next slide. Requirements. There is no requirements for registration office right now, which means that this could be an authorized person in Ukraine. The market authorization holder usually is international company, the manufacturing site or marketing company from India, for instance. And for registration, we need just the power of attorney, and that's it. Not a big question. Then, what is it? The plant inspection. Yeah, it's manufacturing site for GMP. Yes, GMP is the only way to get registration in Ukraine, and this separate procedure. Ukraine is a part of PKS, so-called PKS membership for countries who joined PKS for mutual recognition of GMP. That was for many years in Ukraine, and if you're a PKS member, it takes just just a few months, like maybe 2 months, and costs almost nothing to get GMP verification. For now on, they reduced the number of countries to 35 countries, and you can see on the slide. For India, unfortunately, and for China, they have to make full GMP inspection. It's costly. It costs around 20,000 and takes around half year. At COVID time, they do Zoom inspection, Zoom inspection via Zoom, which is another great option, for now. But usually they have to travel. And of course, it takes time. They have to schedule, we need to make an appointment, and we have to pay for everything, unfortunately. So even if you get US FDA inspection, it doesn't help that much. All right.
Okay, got it.
Okay, I'm moving fast, I don't want to waste your time. I just want to make it clear for you. The regulations itself are close to European regulations right now. And the best way I can advise is make regulatory intelligence before. Actually, that's how we start the most of our projects for international manufacturers. We start from regulatory intelligence, and we can show the best way, the terms, the time, the cost, and everything. After we sign a non-disclosure agreement, get registration dossier, analyze everything, make gap analysis, and then we are telling what we can do with this. Because we have not only pharmaceuticals in Ukraine, it's still a lot of supplements, dietary supplements or food supplements. They call it dietary supplements in Ukraine, but it's the food supplements. There's still a lot of cosmetic, still a lot of medical devices, so on. Everything is regulated somehow. So we can move and we can find, gaps to make it easy for disinfectants, for instance. All right. The other is pretty similar to European regulations. We need instruction for use. We need labeling in Ukrainian language, local language. We need good quality control methods and so on. By the way, translation, actually Ukrainian is the state language. Ukrainian language is state language in Ukraine. Frankly speaking, more than half of Ukrainians speaks Russian.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes from Soviet Union time, from communist time. But still, for instance, my mother tongue is Russian. I can't even speak Ukrainian that much. I can speak English better than Ukraine. So we accept, registration files in English or Russian. We can't accept an Indian files because, there could be so many mistakes and risks are high of, we could be lost in translation, frankly speaking. So usually English is good for us, good for everybody. All right, then pharmacovigilance, we have to follow, like in Europe, we have to follow post-marketing drugs and so on. We also have some exceptions in VAT for drugs, but again, it's floating, it could be high, it could be at low level, it depends, like every next year, it could be different. And finally, the slide at the end of the presentation, the slide I didn't see is the price. Since we have YouTube video recording of live stream, you can follow, you can check it later, but roughly speaking, for generic drugs made in India, it's going to be a second rule, like stage fee pretty low, 2,500 euros, and service fee is around 11,000 euros. Of course, the state fees are always low, the service fees are always high, but we know why. Because if you go without any service, most probably the registration will fail. So we have to pay, a lot of attention. We have to do a lot of job, and milestone to get successful registration. And I'm not trying to offend anybody, but we have to know the truth. And the truth is state authorities are really particular. They scrutinize registration dossier coming from eastern part of actually from Asia. They're scrutinizing it because there were so many bad stories, at the beginning of independent years in Ukraine with drugs from, I don't know, Pakistan, China, India, Afghanistan, whatever, all over the world. So they're really picky, and we have to do in accordance. We have to act in accordance with their expectations to represent the manufacturing studies in best possible way. You understand? You know what I mean. All right. So for variations and renewal of registrations, the price is relatively low. The renewal will cost around 10,000 in total euro, and variation just not for us actually, less than almost less than 1,000 every time. All right. So basically, that's all we can tell you about Ukraine and registration in Ukraine. I also sent a shareable link, so you can include it in the description under the video, and people can just download this presentation. It's going to be available for next, I don't know, week, month, whatever you want. That's all for me and for Anastasia, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Dr. Vlad, thank you for presenting this regulatory affairs and the general regulations of product registrations in Ukraine. There is one part of your presentation that has caught my attention, and it is about the validity of marketing authorizations. It says that for the first 5 years, the first marketing authorization has a validity of 5 years. And then if there are no PV issues, pharmacovigilance issues, then the MA is extended for lifetime. Is it so?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have to go through renewal process in 5 years. So we have to apply again, but it's less costly. And we actually submit the same file or the file with variations included in this file. And pharmacovigilance report, and if everything is fine, you have a lifetime registration of the product.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay, we understand that yes, Ukraine has its reasons to have put more stringent barriers for market entry. Just like you mentioned that previously, right during the independence era, there are a lot of malpractices going on. So yes, so Ukraine is now trying to harmonize the regulatory process equal for all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ukraine is Western-oriented countries, which means they're looking to be part of European Union sometime in the future. If you know the story about these revolutions in Ukraine in 2004, I mean, people revolution, people freedom fight. I've been a part of this in 2004 and 2014. All of them were caused, by politicians who told people, we have to look to Russia, we have to turn to Russia. And people said, no, sorry, we are not for this with peaceful protests. We have to go to Western Europe, or let's say European Union. And actually, there is no option for politicians to be successful unless they accept this democratic term. So basically, they try to be, as close to European regulations as possible. That's the case.
Understood. Now, I would recommend all our viewers who are trying to enter Ukrainian market, apart from the pharmaceutical regulations and business environment, they should have a fair understanding of the history of Ukraine as well. It would be of real help.
Yeah, it's sensitive. It's sensitive.
Now,
yeah, Mr. Vlad, in fact, we are getting a lot of appreciation for your inputs, your presentation. Viewers from all across world are following you. They are appreciating your point. I would just recognize the presence of these viewers, and then you have a lot of questions to answer. Okay. So because let us go with the flow, and then we can come to Mr. Rahil and Mr. Manu for the next episode, next plan. So Mr. Amol Nirantar from India, Mr. Ashok VV from India, Dr. Satish Polshiltiwar, Madam Satwant Kaur Manku, Mr. Jitendra Bharadwaj from Tanzania, Mr. Anil Trikha from India. They are appreciating your thought process a lot, your inputs a lot. And there are a few questions which I would like to take from YouTube as well as from Facebook. Let me just go through this. Mr. Vishal Chandra is asking, what does it mean by stopping the advertisement of supplements and OTC products from 2024? And the similar kind of question is from Mr. Baju Narayan also. Baju Narayan is also asking, can you come back on timeline of 2024? So this seems to be a very interesting point for the viewers of this 2024 issue. Mr. Vlad, you are muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I even turned audio. Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay.
I turned everything off.
There are two gentlemen who are talking about this 2024, which was in your presentation. Mr. Vishal Chandra is asking, what does it mean by stopping the advertisement of supplement and OTC products from 2024? And Mr. Baju Narayan is also pointing the same point. He is saying, can you come back on your timeline of 2024?
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right, gentlemen. So you hear it right. It's declared. It's not in action right now. There is no regulations right now, but it's declared and signed by the President of Ukraine that all advertisement of pharmaceutical drugs, including prescriptions, OTC, over-the-counter products, medical devices, actually any healthcare products, including dietary supplements or food supplements, if you know, will be prohibited since January 1st, 2024. For now on, they have a huge advertising market. And the pharmaceutical companies, it's one of the main customers for advertising companies, including TV. You can see a lot of TV promotion of weird products, not only original products, but really weird or outdated products. They sell it like a new product, of course. But you can see a lot of advertisement on Ukrainian national TV right now. And
okay, I understand.
It's a major problem. Because as I told you before, you can get all these drugs in pharmacy without any prescription. And people start to treat themselves, not medical professionals. They prescribe themselves, these drugs. And that's a problem. That's why they declared that everything is going to be prohibited in 2024, but we don't have any regulations for now.
Okay, I understand. Mr. Vlad, this is getting me to another question. How a typical pharma prescription product is promoted and how the demand is generated in Ukraine? It is more from the OTC route, or it is more for the medical representative and that prescription route?
Basically, that everything is possible, and companies just choose between broad medical representations. I mean, a lot of people working in regions, 40 million people in Ukraine, 1,000 per 1,500 kilometers. You can imagine, to cover all these regions, you need at least, let's say, 50, better 100 medical representatives to visit doctors, to talk to them. But there is another option. You can advertise. If it's a kind of simplified drugs, I don't know, for drug for hangover or for, I don't know, for your bronchitis or whatever, you can just advertise it whenever you can advertise social media, TV, internet, or magazines or whatever, just leaflets, you can sell, make a direct mailing, whatever. So everything is possible. And usually, there are two business models. People build their own network of medical representatives with ATL and BTL advertising, or they rely on distributors. But I highly recommend the first way, because it's a self-operated plan.
Team.
Yeah, your own team will work better.
Any day. I agree with you.
Yeah.
There is one more question from Mr. Ashok VV. I believe it's your presentation somewhere. The mention of this was, what is white label? I think you mentioned white label in one of your presentations earlier.
Okay, thank you for your question. It's a contract manufacturing. I mean, contract manufacturing.
Okay.
When you can order any drug under your own brand. In most cases, it's a well-known drug. It's a generic, but under your own brand, registered as a trademark in Ukraine, for instance, or any other country, somewhere with assistance of manufacturing set who produce a white label product. White label means unbranded products or contract manufacturing. We call it white label in the United States.
I understand. So basically, it is a product of a Ukrainian company who they get manufactured from somebody else outside Ukraine.
Or it's a product manufactured somewhere international, like in India, and
right,
imported to Ukraine.
Okay, fine. Mr. Vlad, we have many more questions, but to go with the flow of the session, I welcome Mr. Rahil Shah. He has few thought process and few questions from Mr. Manu, and then I will come back to you for more questions.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Hitesh. Thank you, Mr. Ward. It was a really insightful presentation from your side. And as we know, like Mr. Manu is a seasoned professional having more than 25 years of experience across the geographies, including CIS countries. Mr. Manu, I would like to just put across certain questions from my side for the benefit of the viewers. On basically from the business side and the sales and marketing sides in the CIS countries. My first question is like, if there is any company from any part of the world, especially from, let's say, India, is looking forward for an entering into the CIS and the Ukraine market, which are some of the critical factors one should look for while entering into the Ukraine market?
Thank you, Mr. Rahil. This is the first question. Being a professional, anybody thinks when enter the market, it's a very good question. Though Mr. Vlad has addressed it to much of the extent, just to summarize this, as we have gone through the presentation, have seen, there are two very important aspects. For any company to enter into Ukraine, first, they should have a very, very good manufacturing plant. That goes without saying, because they have their own GMP. They will come to India if the plant exists in India. They will do the validation of the plant. So plant has to be of EU standards. This is one. Second is, as he has said, in terms of registration. So what they are looking for is, by and large, requirements are in line with the regulatory markets. So you need to have a very, very strong regulatory department, or for a documentation, you should have a strong documentation. So what I can say is, to sum up, there are two important factors: good plant and a good documentation for any product which you want to get registered. So these are the two major key factors to enter into Ukraine.
Correct. So a good plant and a good product with the documentation is
is
the requirement to enter into the Ukraine market. My second question is, especially from the pricing point of view, like many of the regulated markets are always having control price, or you can say the single exit price mechanism. Does Ukraine also have the same kind of a pricing mechanism? If yes, if you can elaborate more on that.
So far as pricing of pharmaceutical product in Ukraine is concerned, it is an open pricing. But of course, as we all know that the prices in any market is driven by the competition and the other factor. But yes, manufacturer or the seller can fix their own pricing.
Okay. Okay. So it's an open price, correct?
Yes.
My next question is from the point of view of gauging the potential of the product. Again, when the companies thought of entering into the Ukraine market, they would always like to look at what will be the product potential, what will be the pricing potential for those products. So is there any specific Ukraine specific IMS or any specific data which is always available or one can access to have those information before entering into the Ukraine market?
IMS as such is available, but in Ukraine it is primarily known as Morion data. So IMS Morion is there, so all the data is available as we have in India.
Okay, so Morion data is something which is to be
they can refer to.
Correct.
Now they have a collaboration with IMS. So IMS Morion is what it is known as. It's available there.
Okay, and it is specific to the Ukraine, not that
it's specific to the Ukraine market. It is elaborated one as we have in India, the segment wise, portfolio wise. So you get everything in that.
Okay, great. Like when people think of entering, especially I'm now talking about again from the Indian company's perspective, when they think of entering into the CIS, but before they would have already have a presence in Africa and Asian markets, they kind of look at the evolution in terms of, like Africa, Asia, they have there, and now they want to look at CIS. What I understand from Mr. Vlad's presentation is like the registration of the product and the charges are quite on a higher side when it compared to Africa or Asia and all. So before entering into the market, of course, you have told me about the registration side of the challenges, but before entering into the market, what kind of a business side of the consideration a company should look for while entering in, before entering or while putting the dossier for the registration?
If I rightly understood, it is more about a kind of a product selection or a segment selection. I will just brief into like this. Once the company is having, the appropriate plant and all the regulatory requirements, they have the products available with. We must understand Ukraine has evolved very fast in last 10 years or 15 years in terms of regulation and in terms of manufacturing also. If I'm not wrong, Ukraine itself has a very strong local manufacturing available. So, even they have companies like Pharma, Arterium, Darnisa, then Kiev Vitaminski Zavod, and then Kusum Healthcare. So there are a number of companies which are already existing in Ukraine, manufacturing in Ukraine. And these companies by and large cover most of the what we call day-to-day prescribed products. So specifically, if any Indian company wants to enter at this juncture, they should also evaluate what is being offered by local companies. Will they be able to compete in that way? Second is specialty segment still is something, or specialized products are still something we still have a huge scope in this country. So people can work on the specialized portfolio or maybe the strength what they possess as a company.
Correct. I must appreciate your answer because you address why one should look for entering into the Ukraine market. So that is why was specifically addressed well from your side. And do you see any kind of a near future challenges or opportunities, or maybe you can say threat from in terms of Ukraine markets? I mean challenges and opportunities. If you can take us through next few years from now.
Ukraine market, as Mr. Vlad has shown, is already 3.2 billion market. That too, after some part of Ukraine is still in a disputed territory. If I am not wrong, if this part is come from Ukraine, come within Ukraine, then the market size is going to get increased furthermore, because the eastern part of the Ukraine is one of the richest part where they have lot of minerals, etc. This country by and large is stable to much extent, except this eastern part, which Mr. Vlad has explained to us. So only political issues are there to some extent, but by and large now it is politically stable. This is one thing. And secondly, market is also growing, as we have seen in the slides presented by Dr. Vlad. Only caution in these type of countries to be keep in mind or take into mind is a currency fluctuations which happen every 3 or 4 years, very drastic fluctuations. So that can be the only aspect. And most important is in this Ukraine is a very well educated people, almost 99% literacy rate is there. Now for any company to be there, talent management is one thing which they also need to keep it in mind while they are in operations. Correct. Because your success depends upon retention of the talent, and local talent is available a lot. So that's something which company needs to keep it in mind while doing and operating in the country to manage the local talent.
Correct. I think you rightly said, and I think from your answer, I can say that when it comes to entering into the Ukraine market, all the boxes are ticked. I mean, it is good to enter into the Ukraine market if you have right product and the right plant and the products to offer. One more question related to the talent management, not from the Ukraine, but there are a lot of students I see always from India also that they enroll for the Ukraine or the CIS universities, especially for the medical field and the allied field into the healthcare. What kind of job opportunities one can look forward for in this region? Because there are a lot of viewers would be from that side also, so maybe that will be benefiting to them.
See, if we go there as a student and then we, after completing the study, look forward for local opportunities, one need to first, in any country where we are, we need to be well versed with the local culture, system and processes. When I talk about a culture, the first and foremost thing is the language. As Mr. Vlada said, in Ukraine, 50% speak about Russian and Ukrainian, so both the languages go hand in hand. But now it is apt that you should also learn in Ukrainian language as well. And in most of the CIS countries, English-speaking people are in a single-digit percentage. So you will get very few people who speak English, and even they know English, they do not generally converse in English because the language is Russian or a Ukrainian. And you need to understand the culture. And there are a number of examples if you see these countries, where students who have gone there 10, 15, 20 years back, they have built the empires, When I say empires, they have established the businesses. Yes, opportunities are there. Again, it depends upon after completing your studies, which kind of studies you have completed. There is an opportunity in medicine, then in engineering also, there are a few opportunities are available. But foremost is understanding local culture and a language. That is the first and foremost thing.
Correct. As you rightly said, whenever you go in any international business or any of the country, whether it is CIS or Latin America, you have to understand the local culture, you have to understand the local language, and adaptability is something which people should look for while becoming the successful into this market. Rightly said. Maybe one more question, if I can just ask. To establish in Ukraine market, allow me to ask this question because I come from more of a background of Asia and Africa. So to establish in the Ukraine market, is it a more of a high capex requirement, high capital requirement, or it is more of, how it is to be more successful into the market? Does it really require too much of capital requirement to establish one into the market?
I will answer it in two ways. First one, as we have seen in the presentation, registration costs itself is around 13,000 euro. Then after 5 years, you are spending another 9,000 euro. So the entering cost itself is very high. This is the one part. The second part comes once you have a products available in the country, once your plant is approved, what next? Again, in Ukraine, the cost of medical representative, the cost of establishing business and running a business is higher compared to Africa, as well as to many countries which are in our Southeast Asia region. Of course, yes, it is a very capital intensive country when we are going to launch it.
Correct. So the take-home message is, yes, it is a capital-intensive affair if you want to enter into the Ukraine market. I think Mr. Manu has answered almost all the questions in terms of anyone who wants to look at Ukraine and the CIS as a territory from what, how, when, and where. So I must say that thank you very much, Mr. Manu. You have really answered all the questions very well. Over to Mr. Hitesh again. For the further.
Thank you, Mr. Rahil. Thank you very much for a nice interaction with Mr. Manu. And thanks a lot, Mr. Manu, for very insightful and very practical answers, I would say. You know, you have been out of Kyiv or out of Ukraine for last many years, but you are very, very updated. I must appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Vlad, there are few more questions to you. We have a viewer from Canada, one Mr. Shailesh Kapadia. He's asking, what is the scope of nutraceutical products in Ukraine, number one. Number two, he's asking if there is any benefit or priority in registration if the product is coming from Canada.
And can you repeat the first question? What is number one?
What he's asking, what is the scope of nutraceuticals in Ukraine? That is the first question. The second is there any benefit or priority in registration if the product is coming from Canada?
All right. So if I hear it right, the scope of nutricity product, is this correct?
Yeah.
You mean for nutrition, for hospital nutrition?
Nutraceuticals,
or for
what is the other name of nutraceuticals, Rahil?
Nutraceuticals?
Yeah.
Yeah, the products like vitamins and you know.
I see what you mean. Yeah, they call it just food stuff or dietary
food supplements.
Supplements.
They will never. Yeah, absolutely. They will never, you know, accept nutritional products or whatever. So that's pretty simple. In Canada, I'm not sure about Canada, but in the United States, the vitamins or these food supplements, let's say food supplements,
yeah, food supplements,
they're not regulated at all. I mean, not if you don't make any health claims, you know, you can sell it without any registration. Nobody cares about this. In Ukraine, the story is different. You have to go through the registration process. It's simplified. It's not like for food supplements, but for vitamins, you go through registration like pharmaceutical products. It's expensive, it takes time, and you need a good manufacturing site. And there is no preference for products from Canada or from India, or from the United States, from Japan, or whatever. There's no preference. It still has the same regulatory project, you know, registration, so the same registration. It's more complicated for local manufacturers again, because it's a new registration for them. All the time it's a new registration or new product or whatever. They have to prove it. It has no risk. But for international manufacturers, it's slightly simplified, you know. For instance, for generics, you just have to represent BABE, bioequivalence studies. You don't have to do clinical trials. But in Russia, for instance, we work for all over CIS countries. But in Russia, you have to go through clinical trials, and this will be really costly, you know, for you. In Ukraine, it's more or less, you know, simple. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it is very much so. The food supplement and vitamins, there are two different categories in Ukraine.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
If,
So
if it
vitamins
goes
are easier to enter with and food supplement is a bit difficult.
No, vice versa. Vitamins is more difficult and food supplements is easier. But again, we have to make a gap analysis, you know. I mean, regulations in Ukraine somehow close to European Union, to United States or Canadian market. But there are so many differences, and we have to compare, you know, every time we have to make a gap analysis, and we're going to tell you the best way, how it works and options you have. And actually, you know, you can just, a lot of information is shared on websites, so you know, you can write it down,
regulatory.com.ua.
That's pretty simple, yeah. Or send a message, info.regulatory.com.ua, like this. And actually, there's a lot of information on this site.
Perfect, right? Perfect. We will put it in our this thing, and viewers can go through the details, and they can always ask you. They can always come back to you with more questions. Sure. There is one more question that the entering cost is high. Okay, there is a lot of competition. So, what kind of profitability we have in the business?
It depends on your term. What I mean, of course, the market entry cost is high, but if you compare it to European market or United States, you know, or Canada, it's relatively low. Actually, it's really low. And of course, you need to allocate budget to advertise, as you know, as I told you before. And then if you have not 1 year, you know, to show return of investment, but like 3 years, 5 years, everything is going to be great. Don't worry about this. As I told you before, I worked for several, you know, European companies from Germany, from Switzerland, from Austria. Nobody expected, you know, any return in the first 3 to 5 years. Nobody expected. You have to invest, you know, advertise, build your business model, talk to distributors. But then, after 5 years, after renewal of registration, you just sit and relax and get your profit, passive income. Actually, it's like this in Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Vlad. What I understand is a high capital intensive market. You have to put a lot of money to enter. Then you have to invest for your brand building, and then you can reap the fruit. So, if I'm thinking of entering in Ukraine, it should be a long-term thought process, a long-term game, than the short-term game. Okay. Though the question is similar, you know, we have a question from one of our viewer called Madam Satwant Kaur Manpu. Though Mr. Manu has also touched this point, she's asking, especially for Mr. Vlad, because of your, you know, background is different than the background from any Indian expected. What should be right entry strategy for Ukrainian market for an Indian company?
For Indian company? Okay, let me share my screen again. As you can see from this chart, my recommendation is, I highly recommend start with intellectual property rights, which means trademark and patent protection if possible. This will keep you on a safe side. Then make your regulatory intelligence to check, you know, is it possible to sell your drug, to get market authorization or not? We can assist you with this. That's our job, you know. And then go through registration. This is how you get a market authorization holder recognition. Maybe, I believe, actually, I'm almost sure you better keep, you know, your own brand. And this could be, as I told you before, contract manufacturing on a, you know, GMP manufacturing side. I mean, well-established GMP manufacturing side. Even you can even ask them. They might have a Ukrainian authorization, GMP authorization. It's not a big problem because a lot of manufacturing sites from India get actually half of the GMP inspections is located in India for local authorities right now. And then when you get your market authorization, you start with distributor search. It's gonna be a complicated process. They pick it, there are like 1,000 distributors all over Ukraine, but you have to talk with, top 20, top 30, top 50 maybe, not more than 50 distributors, that's for sure. And then you decide how do you go, your market approach. You're gonna sell it through pharmacies, or you want to establish hospital sales. By the way, do you know that around, I guess, from 1 to 200, I'm not absolutely sure, from 1 to 200 drugs has regulated prices because of official sale, state sales. Because if the state buy your product, for diabetes, as I told you before, for instance, they have to be sure they don't pay too much. That's why this price could be regulated. But most of drugs, like other 5,000 drugs, is open price, not regulated at all. So you have to choose your market approach. I guess in most cases, you're gonna make ATL or BTL advertisement and promote your brand through the regular people, not only medical doctors or medical professionals. And I believe this is the most cost-saving approach to make a direct advertisement. All right?
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you answered. You answered perfectly. You answered perfectly. So what I understood from your answer that there are few products which are regulated in terms of the pricing also. And then there are a large number of products which are not regulated for pricing.
Yes, from 100 to 200 products is regulated price. But you shouldn't, don't even look at this because local manufacturing is covering these products.
Okay.
So there is no space to enter.
I understand.
No space, or almost zero chance.
There is one more question from one of our viewers that he's asking: Does Ukraine give priority in registration if the product is registered in other CIS country? Suppose my product is already registered in Russia, so does Ukraine gives priority?
I know.
Getting.
I know what you mean. Actually, out of Ukraine, there is a special regulation in Russia for medical device for European Asian Economic Union.
Okay.
And we have some projects like this, which means that you can go through registration of medical device in Russia and then just pay, low tax, state tax for 4 other countries, including Belarus, Kazakhstan, Armenia, and Kyrgyzstan, I guess. But this is not the case in Ukraine. Not the case. It doesn't help at all.
Okay, so it is independent. You have to have only Ukrainian registration for Ukrainian business.
Absolutely. Except
thank you very much. Mr. Shailesh Kapadia is thanking and appreciating your answers. Mr. Anil Kumar Trikha is appreciating Mr. Rahil Shah. He says that very good questions by Mr. Shah for audience benefit. So a lot of appreciation from our viewers from Facebook as well as YouTube. Let me see if there is any more question in YouTube. No, we don't have. Okay. One more question has come from Mr. Paras. What he's asking: how is the scope of local manufacturing? If somebody want to start local manufacturing, we are mostly talking about the product from India coming there. But if I want to go to Ukraine as an investor for manufacturing, how is the scope? What is the playing field there?
Well, tricky question. Actually, you can be a local manufacturer, but if you apply for registration you have to prove that your drug is safe, and it's going to be more complicated process, way more complicated. It will take like almost 5 years if everything is perfect. So I highly recommend be smart and think about an option, you know, to open the company somewhere in London, the United States, somewhere else. But check options for registration if you open the out of India company with manufacturing site in India, which is typical, you know, for all companies, for all international companies produce their drugs in India. We know that. We are pharmaceutical, you know, we are industry professionals. We know that. So why don't just copy paste, you know, this pathway? It's still possible. And if you get, it's maybe not, maybe you can register, you know, it's better to get your company somewhere in a well-known country like Switzerland, and maybe get registration or market free sales certificate somewhere in other countries, like in South Africa, I don't know, maybe in Baltic country, somewhere else, and then apply in Ukraine or for Ukraine market authorization. So it's a smart way. But if you want to dedicate, you know, yourself to Ukraine, you can purchase a local manufacturing site, because there are a lot of them. Maybe 10 of them are dominating, but hundreds are at a really low profile. And you can buy, you know, the whole manufacturing site with active market authorizations for this product. It's another option.
Right. Mr. Vlad, how big would be the local manufacturing business there? Suppose $100 is the overall business of the Ukraine market. Out of that, what would be the percentage of the local manufacturing companies?
The percentage?
Yeah.
CDS for percentage. Okay, let me share my screen again, because figures told better than myself. As you can see, can you see the slide?
Right.
At the right bottom side.
Yeah.
There is import.
So the red one is the local units, eh?
The red one is no, it's not local. It's foreign manufacturers. And yellow is for local. But take a look. In units, local manufacturers are selling more than international manufacturers. But in price, in dollars, in cost, in earnings, they do way more or less. Just this part, maybe a quarter of the market. And the market is 3.4 billion right now. So you can imagine. You see?
Okay, so what I understand, local manufacturers are must be manufacturing very generic product, very low end product where the pricing is not high, and their product may not be seen as a very high end product, so they are not getting the right kind of pricing for their product.
Absolutely, they're still trying. They just maybe 10 years ago there was just a few GMP manufacturing sites in Ukraine. I mean, local manufacturing. Right now, almost everybody. I mean, almost every dominating producer from this top 20. But the sales are growing. Take a look at this site. You can see this blue, red, and yellow for 2017, 2018, and 2019. This, the figures I can get. The first one for drugs, the second one for medical devices, cosmetics, and take a look to supplements, almost the same level as drugs, nutrition.
Yeah, even higher.
Even higher, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vlad, for your insightful details, a lot of knowledge sharing. I'm sure that viewers have got a great insight about Ukraine through your deliberation, and we shall be sharing the contact detail and the website in our YouTube and Facebook channel, and many viewers will come back to you with more and more questions with the time. With that, I request Mr. Manu to share his view about today's topic and the vote of thanks. Mr. Manu.
Thank you, Mr. Hitesh. Let me first thank you, our guest speaker, Dr. Valad, and Anastasia, which she was not well, but we appreciate her presence and her effort. Besides being not well, she made herself available for this session. And thank you, Dr. Valad, for giving the insight, not only from the registration perspective. You had put in all the figures accurate, either it is in terms of sales, either it is in terms of local versus imports. And also you have, what I have liked is you have summarized very well for venture capitalists, for individuals, for corporates, so how they can go about in a Ukraine. So I really appreciate your presentation. And presentation of Anastasia has also very well covered in detail the different registration cost and the requirements and the pharmacovigilance, etc. And also we are thankful to you for sharing the latest update, which may or may not be effective, as you have rightly said, 2024 regulation in terms of advertising, which may or may not, we can just keep, it's just wait and watch. And also give us insight that if your pharmacovigilance track record of 5 years is good, then to get the product re-registered is very easy. So only need to have to be the phase and do the documentation, and your re-registration will be done. So we are very much thankful to you for giving us updates, latest updates, and giving us insights into the Ukrainian market. And we are thankful to both of you. And let me also thank our co-panelist, Mr. Rahil. So we really appreciate your presence on Sunday, and we know your schedule is generally very busy. And thank you very much for taking out time. And also, Mr. Saurabh, we are thankful to you. And as usual, I'd like to thank Mr. Hitesh Upreti for conducting this session and bringing us on the same platform. And I'm hopeful that all our viewers who have watched live or who will be watching it later on will be immensely benefited from this session. So thank you very much, each one of you. And we take the leave from LPC-82. Any question, you can put it on Facebook or maybe Insta or maybe on a YouTube. These questions will be taken up and we will try to address those questions. So thank you very much for each one of you, and to our audience also for attending this session. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Manu. Thank you. Mr. Vlad, anything to add or any conclusive remark from you, please?
Just stay safe. Stay safe, you know, at this challenging time, we have to be careful. And that's great. It was really nice opportunity. Thank you for all your questions, all comments. We're always in touch with you. Just kick me off, you know, and I will answer whatever you want to do as business consultant.
Sure, sure. We will keep you bothering.
And this is, thank you. This is my job and this is my pleasure. Thank you for participating in the invitation of the LPC-82 Global Leadership dedicated to Ukraine as a role country, and live streaming, you know. You have beautiful day, beautiful Sunday, and all the best at every continent looking for us right now. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Vlad. Thank you very much. Mr. Saurabh, from you, the concluding remark, please.
Thank you, Hitesh sir. I must say my takeaways from today's discussion is that Ukraine is expensive and Ukraine is tough, but still it is worth pursuing, because Ukraine gives us a glimpse what the evident future is of pharmaceutical market. Sooner or later, all our countries are going to follow the Ukraine model. So it's better buckle up. Let's raise our standards. For companies who are keeping patient care and quality at the core of their operations, these challenges are actually the opportunities. They can showcase that how they are different from others. And thank you, LPC, once again. Thank you, Dr. Vlad, joining us at the very odd hour. It's almost midnight in Miami, and I believe this time is the after party time in Miami. So thank you so much for joining at this odd hour today. And Ms. Anastasia is not here. I appreciate her participation today despite of her ill health, and we wish her speedy recovery. And as far as LPC is concerned, I appreciate every aspect. Only one complaint: the limited time format of LPC. I mean, we have experience, a collective experience of more than 60 years at present in this screen, and it is very difficult to sum up this experience in just 2 hours. So thank you, LPC, once again. And thank you, Mr. Hitesh. Over to you.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you very much. Mr. Rahil, thank you very much for your time on this Sunday. And it was a great hosting you here. Your concluding remark, please. You are muted, sir.
Thank you, Hitesh. I must say, meeting the right person is equivalent to 100 or 1,000 books, maybe. And that right person is today Mr. Vlad for Ukraine, and also Mr. Manu, who has also put the Ukraine business also in the right perspective. Mr. Vlad has also really taken us what it takes to get into the Ukraine. Thank you, Mr. Vlad. Thank you, Mr. Manu, and all the panelists for spending time and giving us all these insights. And thank you, LPC and all executive members. All the best. Looking forward for LPC growing leaps and bounds from here.
Thank you, Mr. Rahil. Thank you very much. So with this, I thank you very much once again to all of our viewers, all of our audience from Facebook, from LinkedIn, from Instagram, as well as from YouTube. Please keep supporting, please keep watching, keep contributing. You know, your presence gives us a lot of strength to make program better and better day by day, month by month, year by year. So today it was quite interactive session, and we could not take quite a few questions, which Mr. Vlad, I would ask Mr. Vlad to give answers later on. With this, thank you very much, Mr. Vlad. Thank you, Anastasia. Even due to her ill health, she came here, she spent a lot of time, and I wish her a very speedy recovery. And thank you, Mr. Manu, for your contribution. With this, we say goodbye for today, and we will meet on next Sunday at 11 a.m. Thank you very much, and goodbye.